Evening. I hope today you will get some inspiration on storytelling and spread this around to your students. The topic is inspiring students for storytelling. And of course, when we talk of storytelling, we think of storytellers, and rightly so, because they are the ones who pass the wisdom of the past to the present. And if I am to quote a Siberian proverb, if you don't know the trees in a forest, you may be lost. And if you don't know the stories, you may be lost in life. And storytelling is a universal human trait. It started in the cave-dwelling ages as an oral skill and has been evolving ever since. And it is still evolving, and it is getting a new form through digital technology. Before we go there, you know that reality has a real problem with fiction. Now you dream up of a character, you shape it up, you give it a digital form, and you play story games like Forest of Doors and Dungeons and Dragons with people from around the world. And also, of course, we have the storytelling of the YouTube generation, where children download images, download pictures, download music, scan things, and create stories. They have voiceover narration. They present it in class, but we are not going to be talking at all today about this. We are going to have some ideas about how to involve the kids gradually into storytelling. I'm just going to quote something from Jean Blake, who says that stories are like a bitter pill. The lessons that we have to learn about life is contained in those pills. The twists and turns and diversions of the story make the pill easier to swallow, make the lesson easier to swallow. And indeed, every story should pass a lesson. Now, as we said, we'll sow that. And I want to say, in fact, I cannot say much because Krasson did so much about storytelling. He exposed the value, let's say, of stories. If you get 50% of your students to participate in some storytelling activity, you've done a great job. Because then you have the other 50% receive messages and see practices that they would not have adopted because they are reticent, because they are hesitant, because they are afraid to go up and expose themselves. But we cannot use the excuse that, he's not good enough, he hasn't got the talent, he can't do it. Because then again, I'm quoting Henry Van Dyke, who says, use the talent you have. Because the woods would be very silent if no birds sang except those that sang best. So in this participatory, hopefully interactive presentation, we will highlight types of stories that will go smoothly in the lesson. And of course, we have to look at things from the teacher's point of view. What has storytelling got to do with teaching? Well, storytelling and teaching can meet and merge. Students should be hearing, reading, and telling stories for the benefit of their language and not only. Because I think some stories is what Dr. Krasson said earlier, compelling material. Now, I've already mentioned that. Of course, if we give age and theme appropriate stories, we make storytelling a blessing, because stories are mystery boxes which engage our attention in a non-stress state. Why do we like stories? Because they soak our brain with a chemical of wild things. Stories hold our attention At brain level, what's happening in the story is not just happening to them, it's also happening to us. We are transferred in a parallel state, and we identify with the struggles of the protagonist. How many times did you not read or feel moved when you read a story? So actually, I was reading an article about the science of storytelling, and that stories affect 7 areas of our brain. And all, at the same time. That's why they're so effective. And of course, story build our knowledge of the world and cultures. Anderson's stories have been spread all over the world. Of course, they've been changed. Of course, they've been given a different edge in each country, but we all know them. So they just bring along different cultures and have infused the classroom with engaging multi-modal experiences. And don't we want to spice up our lesson? Well, that's one suggestion. And of course, they offer a safe space because we are within our group and we experience great emotions and powerful emotions, and they give us a sense of belonging. We are not together. Is this togetherness? Is this being a group? Is this sharing thing, which is so important with storytelling? And they are fun, escapism. Who doesn't want to get away from reality? We enter in worlds that we would not have entered otherwise. You see, stories don't tell children that dragons do not exist. Children know that dragons exist. Stories tell them that dragons can be beaten. And that is a message that is worthy carrying with you along in your life. Of course, it improves speech projection. Well, that is the one reason why we want children to come forward and speak. Because technology is fantastic in everything, but I don't think it encourages speaking. And it sharpens improvisational skills. I'm always surprised with some kids that come forward and tell a story, and they have a certain way of delivering it and certain props that I wouldn't have thought of. So that is improvisation at work. And it transfers emotion through body language. How important is that? And it motivates us to learn beyond the classroom, because if they get into the story idea and they like it, they go out and read more. So then we have some kind of self-study. And of course, in few cases, it leads to story making. They craft their own stories. Most of them are of the macabre type, though, but that's what they do. Now, I'm going to show you how a group of third graders who started English because they started the 3rd grade were introduced to storytelling right there and then without having been primed as to what they were going to be given or taught anything. And when I did that at school, I didn't know that I would be using it, but just observe how you give out roles and involve them. Down the road there is a hen. Can we do the hen? Can we do the hen? Actually, that's the duck, but at that time I didn't know it. You look good. You look good. I want to eat you. I want to eat you. But the gingerbread man starts running and says, run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me, I'm a gingerbread man. And now who's running after the gingerbread man? It's the old woman. And the man. Old man and the pig. And then cow. And then dog. And then horse. You lift it up. We lift it up. And then hen. And now everybody's running and he's really happy. Nobody can catch him, nobody, but no, there is the river, he cannot cross the river. I'm moving it. I can help you. Okay, he can help So he runs, he sits on his back, and they start swimming, 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 and they move down, and soon the fox says, you are too heavy, gingerbread pet, jump on my shoulders, and you won't get too heavy, gingerbread pet, get wet. And as he comes on his head, look at the head here, and they're coming and they're swimming and they're coming close to the end. And the fox turns the head back and eats the gingerbread man. And the fox eats the gingerbread man, and there is no gingerbread man for the old woman, no gingerbread for the horse, not for the hen. But you know what? There is a gingerbread man for you. If you stay there, you will get a gingerbread man. Can I have the gingerbread man for the kids? Oh, nice. I will have a gingerbread man. Yeah. So each takes one. You take one. Okay, it's time issues and I have to get moving on. Now, I'm going to go on with a sample of chant-like storytelling. We're talking about rhythmic, repetitive, predictable little stories that will encourage in the first steps of English to the kids to start getting into this notion of telling stories. And it's the brown bear, what can you see? Now you need to help me. Okay, Ellen is going to help me. She's giving, yeah, they have to go at that side so that they can see. What the audience is going to be doing, they will be asking those endearing animals what they see. They actually, yeah. Number one, however, you see the way they are, there is number one, number two, number three, and you can see up there what you can see. So we go like brown bear, what can you see? You can see I can see a red bird looking at me. Ask, red bird, what? Oh no, it's actually the red bird now. We've moved from the brown bear, it goes to the red bird, and we go red bird, what can you see? Red bird? Yellow duck, what can you see? Looking at me, goldfish, what can you see? I say green frog looking at me. Green frog, what can you see? I see a shiny goldfish. Shiny goldfish, what can you see? Whoever has got it. Well, you got and then there is a teacher at the end, and the teacher, whoever is the teacher says all the previous. Now, if we make this a little bit more difficult, we give adjectives. So we have a strong horse, a strong blue horse looking at me. What other animals? We have a fluffy cat looking at me. So if you get something they will be adopting, you just add adjectives and build to their knowledge. We'll collect this later. Now, at a more difficult level, we have the brown bear. What can you hear? Now, everybody's participating here because you're going to be hearing sounds as well. So I want half of you to be asking this animal that you see what they see, and the other animal are going to be helped by the PowerPoint to see to tell us what you see. So we start with brown.
Brown bear, what do you hear?
Roaring in my ear.
What do you hear? Hippo, what do you hear?
It's not a very strong sound, by the way. This can be very effective. It's a little bit the sound, but never mind. You give some sound because then you spice it a little bit more. It's the idea here that counts. Flamingo, flamingo. Braying in my ear. Remember those sounds, then you're going to be tested. No, I mean that. Zebra. I hear a snake or a boa constrictor hissing in my ear. Snake, snake, what can you hear? Trumpeting in my... Leopard snarling in my ear. Leopard, leopard. A walrus bellowing in my ear. What a pity we cannot hear those sounds here. Bellowing in my ear. So, walrus, what do you hear? I hear zookeeper whistling in my ear. Zookeeper. Children growling like everybody. A bear roaring like a. Snorting like a. Fluting like a. Braying like a, hissing like a, trumpet, snarling, yelping like that, a walrus. That's what I hear. Walrus, what do I hear? I hear a zookeeper whistling in my ear. And if I had time, I would really put you to the test, and you would have to say, I hear children growling like a bear, roaring like a lion, and all the rest. So you can test vocabulary like that. So what kind of stories? Did I go right? No. Okay, so it goes without saying that you have to avoid stories that come from the dark side of your brain or of your heart, not in the school. The ones you want to get out of, because you know what? Most of these stories written in those Middle Ages are really wild stories with a lot of cruelty, with murderously dysfunctional families where it was very hard to survive. In fact, at the time of Grimm's, Germany was it was ruled by France. People were dying in the street of hunger. So the Hansel and Gretel story was not too far away from reality. We have to foster relevant and appropriate to our audience stories. I love fables, short, sweet, with messages and condensed wisdom from the past. I also love fairy stories sprinkled with mystery, wizardry, the unexpected. We could talk of Rapunzel, we could talk of Snow Queen, Andersen, all that. And also one quote, can everybody read that? From Alice in Wonderland. You know what the issue is with this world? Can we read this all in one?
Everyone wants a magical solution to their problem, and everyone refuses to believe in magic.
Yes, you don't believe in magic. Okay. Also familiar classic stories, by the way. Which classic story is the tale of your life? I mean, classic stories have inspired movies. How many times have you seen various versions of Cinderella? And adaptations of classic stories. I really like those with a twist in the end. We all know the Three Little Pigs, for example, but if I had time and told you the story from the wolf's point of view, you would see it's a quite different story. And also tales that remind us that we are part of planetary dust and the animal kingdom because we've been taken away from nature. And I need stories to remind me that. I like myths, legends, epic stories with superhuman protagonists, fresh, upbeat stories of the now and of the present. They're also very good because a very classic one get boring after a point. Of course, you have to evolve and bring the storytelling into stories of the now. And by the way, because I'm telling you that I want children to come forward and tell stories, I give them a collection. I have an archive of stories that I really like, and for each level I give something like 15 to 20 at the most, and that is their, let's say, library for when they come forward. It's not just go and do anything. They won't. You need to be behind them. Okay, now, and of course I want stories that allow us to escape to different worlds. And stories that play with aura. You remember everybody knows the Twilight film and how everybody was stuck on those young men and women who turned into wolves except on a clear moon, and how everybody was addicted to that. Something in human nature makes us want this different, this mystery, this awe, this escaping from reality. And we're closing on the theory, and of course cultures from, stories from different cultures, because they mold our thinking. Stories nearly always judge wrongdoing, and so they give lessons. Now, another way of doing storytelling is choosing a story that you like. And in this particular case, I chose a story which is called A Squash and a Squeeze. You get your student, you plasticate that as you see it here. You turn it into A3. Have the kids around you. You can have the stories, the words behind, because you don't have to remember all of them. And I'm just going to give you a little idea of what the story is. Is this old lady, she's got a hen, a goat, a pig, and a cow, and a very little, and a house that she thinks is very small. And she complains about this house, and so you go on with the story and you say, a little old lady lived all by herself with a table and chairs and a jug on the shelf. Now a wise man, I'm going to help, I'll have the help of a wise man and an old woman in a minute. A wise old man heard her grumble and grouse. Old woman, there is not enough roof in my house. I'm waking you up. Wise old man, won't you help me, please? My house is a squash and a squeeze. And the wise man said, the wise man, what a curious plan. Well, the hen laid an egg on the fireside rag and flopped around the room, knocking over the jug. The little old lady cried, what shall I do? It was pocky for one and it's tiny for two. My nose has a tickle and there's no room to sneeze. My house is a squash and a squeeze. And she said, okay, this wise man always tells her to take everything in. You realize now how messy it is all. And at the end, he tells her, take them all out. And all of a sudden, the house is no longer very small. And she ends up and she says, do you remember what you say? There's no reason to grumble and grouse. there is enough room in my house, and anyway, it all rhymes. So that's another way of doing storytelling. And we move on. Now, Mia Lang. This is a story for grown-ups, and it's from Andrew Wright. And there is another technique. You tell the story, and someone with a sketching skill sketches some of the things you are saying. Let's see that. I hope the sound is going to be something with the sound. And the neck, long white neck, and the body, strong, white, fat body, and the feathers, soft, beautiful feathers, and those little tiny legs with their feet like an open hand. And she looks at it when she finishes and she likes it. My God, so beautiful. But you know what? Suddenly, the picture starts trembling. And you won't believe it, but in a minute, a duck stands on the ground and jumps off and walks away. Wow, 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 wow. She takes another piece of paper and says, now what can I draw? What can I draw? And there passes a hand. Oh, I know. I'm going to draw a hand. So she takes a piece of paper, and here is the red hat on the small brown head. And here is the clever, quick eye of the hen. And then she moves beautifully down to the long brown neck. Brown body, round body, strong body, and some feathers. Look at those fantastic feathers. What do you think happened? The picture started trembling and moving, and suddenly a real hand came on top of it. And Mia Lang got hold of the hand. The hand, you won't go away. I know what I'm going to do. Down the road lives an old lady. She's very poor. She needs the hand. She needs the hand. Oh, lady, this is for you. For me? She says, yes, it's for you. Take it. It's yours. Mine? She says, yes. And the old lady is very happy. Okay. Mia Lang, just to give you a little bit of the story, is a poor Chinese girl who has this talent for drawing, very poor, however, she was drawing on the ground. And somebody gave her a magic brush. And ever since she was drawing with this brush, she could make real things. So that was a thing that she drew things and gave them and helped them. And the king, of course, heard of that. And then he wanted to, he wanted her to draw him trees full of gold coins. She would not do it. It's a whole story. I'm not going to go into that. What I'm saying here is that emotional stories draw their attention, and they give out messages as well. So that was the story of Mia Lang. You tame fears, you encourage sensory awareness, and of course props bring life into the storytelling, and lots of kids use props when they themselves tell stories. Now, the secret. Well, I don't think it's a secret, but if you tell the story eye to eye, and if you tell the story heart to heart with energy and enthusiasm and illustrate with props, you've done a great job. And of course, remember that rhythmic, repetitive, predictable patterns give clue and that help the kids to join in. You see, it's not you telling a story. The point is to get them to join in. So you have to go for stories that have predictable patterns. And we are going to give a presentation of the tailor story here. Okay, so there was this tailor who worked very hard every day. And every night, of course, he would go to... Sorry, have you got all of these? You've got them? If you haven't, there are. Sorry for interrupting. It just crossed my mind because these are here. You don't need to look at them. But I mean, if you haven't got that, ask for it. So as I was saying, this tailor lay down to sleep on that particular night. And as he was closing his eyes, his glance fell on his sewing. And to his amazement, he saw that part of the garment he had sewn was missing. He suspiciously looked around, and at the corner there was this rat. Hey, rat, why did you eat my garment? It's not my fault. Who is going to help me? The cat is to blame for chasing me to eat me. So the next day, the tailor gets hold of the cat and says, hey, cat, why do you chase the rat that ate my garment? And the cat says,
it's not my fault. I'm not to blame, sir. Not your fault. And who is it to blame then?
it's the dog. The dog is to blame for chasing me to bite me. So the next day, the tailor gets hold of the dog and says, hey, dog, why do you chase that?
It's not my
Why do you chase that? Cat. Which chases that? The rat that ate my garment. And the dog says,
It's not my fault. I'm not to blame, sir. Not your fault. And who is it to blame then?
it's the stick's fault for chasing me to hit me. So the next day, the tailor gets hold of the stick and says, hey, stick, why do you chase that? Which chases that? Which chases that? Which chases... you're paying attention. Thank you. And so the stick says, it's not my fault.
It's not my fault. I'm not to blame, sir. Not your fault. And who is it to blame then?
The fire is to blame for chasing me to burn me. So the next day, the tailor gets hold of, goes to the fireplace and asks the fire, hey, fire, why do you chase that? That chases that? That chases that? That chases that? That ate. Okay. And the fire said, it's not
My fault. I'm not to blame, sir. Not your fault. And who is it to blame then?
the water is to blame for chasing me to extinguish me. So the next day, the tailor goes to the river and asks the water, hey, water, why do you chase that? That chase that? That chases that? That chases that? That chases that? And the water said, it's not my fault, it's the elephant's fault. And the elephant says,
It's not my fault. I'm not to blame, sir. Not your fault. And who is it to blame then?
it's the elephant says, it's the mouse to blame for scaring me. And because everybody is blaming everybody else, and the tailor needs to find the truth, he takes the whole thing to court. And at the court, the judge was a penguin. And that's why judges now wear black and white and a tie to pay homage to that first judge. So the judge has called everybody and invites the rat to the court and asks him to swear in the name of the owner of the animals The truth and only the truth. So the judge, and now you're going to use, previously we used the simple present. Now we're going to switch into the simple past. So the judge asked, why did you rat it, the tailor's garment? And the rat said,
Dear judge, it is not my fault. It is the cat's fault for chasing me to eat me.
So the judge invited the cat on the dog and asked, hey, cat, why did you chase the rat that ate? And the cat replied,
Dear judge, it is not my fault. It is the dog's fault for chasing me to bite me.
so, as you realize, the judge called on the dog to tell the truth and asked the dog, dear dog, so I should not go on because I want to tell you a dear story at the end, but you get the message here. Eh? So it's so predictable. You give roles and it's done right there on the spot. Now, I'm not, okay. The wisdom room, that's the last one. And, okay. I need a bit of water. In the old days, in a faraway country, lived a very good king who had the best intentions in the world and never stopped working for them. When he succeeded his aging father to the throne, still a young man, he invited all the wise men in his country, his father's consultant, into a meeting, and in that meeting he told them that it was their responsibility to gather all the wisdom of the now and of the past into books, into an encyclopedia, which he would put in a little room he had built in the palace, and he called it the wisdom room. When the wise men heard of that, they panicked. What an impossible task. How could they possibly read all the wisdom of the now and of the past? That would take years. That would take ages. That would take decades. But our king, they said, that would mean we would have to read all the wise books of all the times. It's impossible. It will take years. It will take decades. It will take ages. But the king would not have a second word on the matter. And they soon realized that when a king gives an order, it has to be met. And off they went, and started having sessions and started convening and having meetings and trying to read all the wise books of all the times, trying to condense all the wisdom of the now and of the past into a book. And the year passed, and 2 years passed, and 3 years passed, and 5 years passed, and the king would often ask about the project. But they could not finish it, and they always found excuses and pushed it off, and they always delayed the delivery of their project. And after 10 years, they managed to complete their task. So they asked to see the king, and they were ushered into the palace, and they presented their work to the king. And the king looked at them keenly in the eyes, and they said that he was very proud of them, that they should be proud of themselves for having completed such a difficult task. And added, but as you know, I'm a very busy man. Half of the year I'm fighting our enemies in the front lines. There's hardly any time for me to read this encyclopedia. I would ask you to do me one more favor. I'd like you to condense all the wisdom of the now and of the past into one book. When the wise men heard of that, they panicked. How could they possibly condense the wisdom of this world into one book? That would mean they would have to have more meetings again and again. And that would take months, that would take years, that would take ages. But our king, they said, that will take ages, that will take years. But the king would not have a second word on the topic. And they soon realized that when a king gives an order, it's got to be met, and off they went. And the session started again, and the meeting started again, and the difficult task, and some of the wise men had already died. And a year passed, and 2 years passed, and they still would not do it. And on the 5th year, they completed the task, and they asked to see the king and deliver it to them. And yes, they were accepted into the palace, but they were led into the king's bedroom. The king had contracted an illness in all these years fighting the enemy, an illness that had debilitated him. He could hardly move, he could hardly do anything. He looked at them into their eyes and said, "Wise men, you should be proud of yourself. I am proud of you. But as you see, I'm hardly the man that I used to be. I'd like you to do me one more favor. I would like you to condense all the wisdom of the now and of the past into a chapter. I may then be able to read it." Not again. The wise men could not believe that this was happening yet again, but they did not want to trouble their king. He looked so sick, so incapable of doing. They knew that they would not take a no for an answer, or off they went. And again they convened, and again they had meetings, and again they tried to condense everything. And months passed, and a year passed, and at the end of this year, they completed the task. And now, the representative of the king, the representative of the wise men, asked to see the king. And he was led to the king's bedroom. The king was still alive. His eyes were closed. There was no energy. He heard some noise. He opened his eyes and he looked at the wise man, an old man himself, and recognized him and smiled faintly at him and said, "Wise man, I'd like you to thank all the wise men on my behalf. As you see, I'm very sick. I don't have much time left. I have no energy. I'd like you to do me one last favor. I'd like you to tell me in one sentence all the wisdom of the now and of the past." The wise man was shocked, unable, not knowing what to say, not wanting to disappoint the king. And after some seconds, he bent forward, looked at him warmly in the eyes, and said, "Live every moment of your life as if it were your last. Live your life to the full." Thank you. Okay. And I am just leaving you with thank you very much. And sorry, there is one song for you to leave with. It was performed, where is it? By kids doing English. That's the end.
Crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. Hot air balloon that could go to space. In the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way.
Because I'm happy like a lot. If you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy like a lot. If you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy like a lot. If you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy like a lot. If you feel like that's what you wanna do.
Come back news, tell me this and that. Yeah, give me all you got, don't hold it back. Yeah, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. Yeah, thanks to you, don't waste your time. Here's why.
Because